program. It is Packers veteran cornerback and former Michigan Heisman Trophy winner and national champion, Charles Woodson. Charles, good morning.
Good morning, and go blue.
You'll have to tell that to Jarrell Worthy, who apparently, as has been pointed out to us this morning, has a tattoo of a Sparty stomping on a Wolverine on his arm. You may have to ask him to have that removed.
Yeah, those guys have gotten pretty lucky over the past 4 years, so they're feeling pretty good about themselves. So, I can't take that away from them.
Charles, I want to talk to you about your trip to Washington and your future as a politician. But before we do, we have to talk. We got to talk a lot of football. First of all, we wanted to get your reaction to the draft. The first 6 picks, all on defense. Did you get to watch any of the draft, or did you get reports? And what were you thinking as it was unfolding? And then, what do you think now that it's completed?
Yeah, I was kind of getting reports here and there. Then I would, look at my iPhone, of course, and try to find out what we were doing. I just that those couple of days and seeing, defensive players, being picked, by the organization, just to me, it was really music to my ears because of going through last season and the way it went down, and how poorly, defensively we played. At a lot of times during the season, it was evident that we needed some extra push, on the defensive side of the ball. So I was very excited, to see, Ted and Mike and those guys go after some defensive help.
Charles, they drafted Casey Hayward, a corner, and not saying anything specifically about him, but, you've been in the league long enough. You came in as just a crazy, freaky athlete, and you still are. But as you look at the position of corner and what's expected of cornerbacks in the league, if you look at it, what can you teach a young player as a corner, and what do they have to have coming in? What's something that you absolutely positively can't teach somebody that they have to be a cornerback in the NFL?
Just looking at some small, amounts of some highlights that I've seen on them, it seems I guess a couple of important things that he has. He seems to have great instinct, as far as playing the ball. And I think that's probably, one of the things that you definitely can't teach. You can't teach a guy instinct. You can't teach him necessarily how to play the ball. You can try to coach it in practice, but a guy who has instinct is going to make the play. And just watching a little bit, he seems like a guy that's willing, to go make a play. And then he seems like he has confidence. It's hard to play in the cornerback position and not have a ton of confidence because you're going to get beat at times. But the most important thing about a cornerback is lining back up that next play and saying, that won't happen again. So those two things are very important. Now, just going forward with that, what you teach them is it's all about playing in the NFL, and being a professional and taking your job serious, because now it's no longer college. You're not on scholarship anymore. It's they're paying you to come do a job, and they want you to do it well. So they got big expectations, out of him, to come in and contribute. So that'll be the most important thing for him.
Charles, one of the primary topics after he was selected, and you talked about this when you were on our show the last time. It was when Nnamdi Asomugha, your good friend and former teammate in Oakland, was a free agent. We asked you if you'd be willing to move to safety if the Packers signed him. What about now? There's a lot of talk about, obviously Nick Collins won't be with the team this year. We don't know if he's going to play elsewhere or not, but there's a hole at safety. Is that something you would still consider? Is that something they've talked to you about, and is it something that you would want to do?
I think it comes down to, what the other guys are going to be able to do as far as the cornerback position is concerned. If one of those guys could take over that role and make the plays needed to be made at corner, and with us having, some, of course, with Nick Collins being released, there being need for, me to play safety, then no, I'm I'm not opposed to that, but I think that, we have to make sure that, that our cornerback position, is going to be solidified and that we're comfortable with who's going to be out there at the corner.
What did you and Nick are very close. How much have you talked to Nick? How disappointing is it that he's not going to be with you guys this year? And, Mike McCarthy came out and said that if Nick was his son, he wouldn't want him to play after suffering the injury he did. You have a different perspective, not only as his friend, but you're more like his brother, and you play the game. You know the risks. Are you hoping that he doesn't play, or are you hoping that he continues his career?
Yeah, that wouldn't hurt, And like you said, Nick is like a little brother to me, and I care about the guy, So, for one, for him to sustain that injury, was hard enough, and now he's faced with the decision: does he try to come back and play? After being released by the team, on the team he's known in the NFL. It's hard for a young man that's 28 years old, to be sitting here figuring out what he's going to do with the rest of his life, when all of his life, he's been a football player. You think about most people in life, at 25, 28, you figure out, what you're going to do at that point, whether you make up your mind in college or after college. But for a guy like Nick, somebody like me who's been playing football since we were 7 and 8 years old, that is your profession. That is what you do. So now he's got to, face with the, decision. Does he try to move forward and do something else, or does he take that chance? I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't know what to think about, whether he should, try to play or not, because I know how serious that injury was. I think about him, like I say, as a brother, and I don't want anything to happen down the road where it's more serious than it was before, So, it's something that, Nick is going to have, long thoughts and probably sleepless nights, thinking about. But I know he'll come up with the best decision.
Packers Pro Bowler Charles Woodson joining us on Green and Gold today, 540 ESPN, ESPNWisconsin.com. Charles, a lot of the talk in this offseason is surrounding concussions. I mean, a lot of speculation with regard to the death of Junior Seau. But I got to ask you, as a veteran and a guy that's been in the league and a guy that's dished out a lot of hits and taken a lot of hits, how concerned are you about concussions and about just your own health going forward, when you do decide to hang them up?
Yeah, I think it's a big concern. I think it's a big concern for everyone involved with the game, anybody who's played. Most of us have been playing this game a long time, and you've been playing since you were a kid, so you've sustained a lot of hits over time. And for myself, being 35, playing 14 years, and being a guy who's always been willing to tackle and stick my nose in there, to hear Junior Seau possibly taking his own life because of injuries he's sustained in the NFL, it's a little scary. I have to be honest about that. I think the moral to this story is that when you're done playing, if you got some problems, you got to talk about it. Most of us players are, consider ourselves to be tough guys, and we like to keep things to ourselves, but got to start talking about it. It's an issue that's it's right here in our face now. Everybody knows Junior Seau. If you don't know any of the other guys that have killed themselves because of, football-related injuries, we know Junior Seau. So I think for every player in the league, it kind of hit home.
Charles, how important is it, too, that guys, after they retire, get some sort of counseling or preparation for life after football? You mentioned about Nick, how all he's known is football. You're such a renaissance guy off the field. You've got the wine company that, college and those fat guys are now stealing the idea of doing themselves. You obviously, I joked about political aspirations, but you certainly have an interest in that sort of stuff. And I'm not sure that a lot of guys have that. They don't have that, varied interests off the field. Do you worry about guys after their careers end, even if it's not concussion related, just depression because they don't know what to do with their lives, or they're not smart with their money, or whatever it might be?
I think so. I think, with the way the game is now and just the amount of money that's involved in the game, those guys don't feel like they have to, pursue anything else. They feel like the money that they've made or that they are making in the NFL is enough that's going to last them the rest of their lives. And then what happens as a result of that is that they spend a lot of money on different things, whether it's, family, whether it's cars, homes, bad investments, and things like that. They find themselves in a hole once the game is over because you make all of this money in a short period of time. The average is, 3 years. You're lucky if you get to, whatever, 10 or whatever years. So you make, all of your money in a short period of time. And then after the game's over, once the game's over, that money immediately stops. I mean, there's nothing else after that. So you have to try to maintain whatever you were doing during your time in the NFL and try to make that work for the rest of your life. And it just don't work like that. I mean, when you got bills, a lot of times guys got bills in the excess of.
We're still here, Charles. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
think we lost. Billy. But I'm still.
Yeah, that's those large amounts of money that you're shelling out over time while you're playing. It's hard to keep up. After you're done playing. So, a lot of guys find themselves in a hole, and then they're not going out and seeking other things to do while they're playing and trying to get something established so that once they're done playing, they can kind of hit the ground running as far as getting themselves involved in something else.
Talking with Packers cornerback Charles Woodson here on Green and Gold today. A couple other things, Charles. I made the joke about Chad Clifton or about Darren College and Tony Mall and Jason Spitz and their wine company. Has the NFL allowed you a little more leeway with your promotion of that, or are they still kind of cracking down on that sort of thing?
Well, I haven't heard anything, Jason, so I'm going to just let sleeping dogs lie.
Okay, fair enough. You did, speaking of off-the-field things, you did go to at least to Washington, D.C. You got to see your old friend, President Barack Obama, again for the White House Correspondents' Dinner. This is what kind of prompted me to reach out to you. What was that like? Because I watched him. Whoever wrote his jokes for him, he was pretty funny. He didn't make any Bears or Packers references, but he was still pretty good. What was that experience like? You guys have a history together.
It was fun. It was just a great opportunity for me to just be on that scene. I mean, there was a lot of movie stars and politicians and correspondents and that sort of crowd, and which I'm neither of any of those. So it was just great to be a part of it and see the way that correspondence dinner is. I mean, it's really a time when all of those guys can get together and just kind of make light of everything that's going on in politics, even though things are a lot more serious than what they would portray that particular night. But I mean, it was a jam-packed place at the Hilton there, and I mean, it was a lot of fun. The president, like you say, he was great. I mean, his timing, I think, is probably second to none as far as his delivery and his jokes, and everybody got a kick out of it. Even I even seen Newt Gingrich laughing at his jokes, so it must have been pretty funny.
Did you? I joked about this earlier, but do you have any interest in that? I mean, I know, obviously you used President Obama's remarks as some speech fodder for your team, but does politics interest you? I know you came out and had a couple of comments about workers' rights. Is that something that after you're done you'd like to get into or would consider getting into?
No, I don't think so. I think I don't know. I guess politics it kind of scares me a little bit, man. That part of life is pretty scary. I got a chance to go to the Capitol building, there in D.C. that weekend, and got to sit in on one of the House votes, I believe it was, and I mean it could get pretty crazy in there, So I don't know if I'd be interested in really getting into the politics when I'm done.
Last thing before we let you go, Charles, we had Chad Clifton on the show last week after he was released. Obviously, Nick is gone. There's no guarantee that Donald Driver, when he's done with Dancing with the Stars, is still going to be on the roster. There's certainly been talk about that. If that ends up happening, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the longest tenured Packer, having joined the team in 2005, and then you and Grease came in 2006. Do you have any concern at all about the measure of veteran leadership on that team these days with that many guys departing? I mean, there aren't many of you quote-unquote old guys left in that locker room.
I'm not really concerned about that, because I think we have, you don't have a lot of veterans, but I think you have the right veterans. I think having your quarterback, being a veteran on your team, who's played tremendous, for the organization. I think bringing in a guy like Jeff Saturday, definitely adds to that. You got myself on defense. But I think we have, the right mix of guys that have been in the league, 5, 6, 7 years. And then, of course, myself, who's been in just a little bit longer. But I feel like we have the right mix of guys, and I think our coaches, our coaching staff, I believe, is probably second to none as far as teaching and trying to get guys ready to play throughout the year. So I'm not concerned about that at all. And I think we'll fare pretty good this year.
Charles, thanks so much for making time for us today. We really appreciate it, man.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Charles.